The room was quiet. Too quiet. Only the low hum of the starship's engines could be heard through the walls. The lights above flickered once, then steadied, giving the chamber a cold, white glow. Inside the medical bay, a single figure lay on a bed. His body was covered with burns, scars, and deep wounds. His skin was pale, almost lifeless. A blanket was pulled up to his chest, hiding most of him. Machines stood beside the bed, silent and half-broken, as if they too had given up. The door hissed open. A nurse stepped inside. She was young, her hands small and trembling as she carried a bowl of water and a cloth. She had been told to clean the soldier's body. Nothing more. No one believed he would ever wake again. She looked at him carefully. How could anyone survive this? She thought. His chest barely moved, but there was something about him that made her hesitate. This was no ordinary patient. This was a human soldier, the last survivor found on the ruined planet below. The nurse dipped the cloth into the bowl and wrung it out. She touched his forehead gently. His skin was cold, but not as cold as she expected. She pressed the cloth down and wiped slowly, clearing the dirt and dried blood from his face. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You fought so hard, but why are you still here?" No one answered. The soldier's eyes remained closed. His breathing was shallow, almost invisible. Still, she continued. She cleaned his face, his neck, and his arms, careful not to touch the worst wounds. Each scar told a story of battles, pain, and survival. Behind her, an alien medic entered. His tall frame filled the doorway, his voice sharp. "Why waste your time?" he said. "Humans do not survive wounds like these." "He is already gone." The nurse did not answer. She kept wiping the soldier's skin, her heart heavy but stubborn. Something inside told her she could not stop. The alien sighed and shook his head. Strange creatures, humans. Fragile bodies. Too much blood, too much weakness, and yet they cling to life longer than any species I know. He left the room with a dismissive wave of his hand. Silence returned. The nurse dipped the cloth again and pressed it against his shoulder. Her movement slowed. For a moment she thought she saw something. A flicker. A tiny twitch in his hand beneath the blanket. She froze, her eyes darted to his face. His eyelids were still shut, his breathing shallow. Had she imagined it? She leaned closer, whispering, "Did you move?" Nothing. The sound of the engines filled the stillness. She shook her head, scolding herself. "No, it's only nerves. He is gone. Just finish your work." She wiped his chest carefully. The cloth was warm with water. She tried to calm her mind. But then, there it was again. A faint, almost invisible movement. The blanket shifted slightly, just enough for her to notice. Her heart skipped. She dropped the cloth back into the bowl, water splashing on the floor. "Impossible," she breathed. Her hands trembled as she reached for the monitor beside his bed. The screen flickered weakly, static buzzing, then steadied. For the first time in hours, a faint pulse appeared. A heartbeat. Slow, weak, but steady. The nurse stepped back, covering her mouth with her hand. Her eyes widened. "No, you can't be alive. Not after everything." But the evidence was right there. The pulse on the screen, the twitch beneath the blanket. She turned toward the door, ready to call the medic back. But she stopped herself. He wouldn't believe her. He had already given up. He would say it was only a glitch, only broken machines. No, she needed to be sure. Her eyes returned to the soldier. Slowly, carefully, she bent down close to his face. She whispered again, "Can you hear me?" The silence dragged on. Seconds felt like minutes. Her own heartbeat pounded in her ears, and then it happened. His finger moved. Just once, just enough for her to see it. The faint twitch turned into a slow curl of his hand beneath the blanket. The nurse gasped, stumbling backward. The bowl of water tipped and spilled across the floor, spreading in a dark puddle. Her eyes locked on the figure in the bed. His body was still broken, still pale, still covered in scars. But he was not gone, not yet. Something deep inside him still fought, refusing to surrender. Her lips trembled as she whispered again, this time louder. "You are alive." The lights above flickered once more, shadows crawling across the walls. The hum of the engines grew louder. The air in the room felt heavier, charged with something unseen. She pressed her back against the wall, unable to look away, and then, beneath the blanket, his chest rose deeper, stronger. His body stirred ever so slightly, as though he was fighting his way back from a long, dark sleep. The nurse's fear grew, but so did her awe. She whispered once more, her voice shaking. "What are you?" The answer did not come. But in that moment she understood one thing. This was not over. The soldier was not gone. The blanket shifted again. This time it was not her imagination. The room was heavy with silence. The nurse stood frozen near the wall, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her eyes were locked on the soldier. She had seen it, his hand moved. She was sure of it. Her mind screamed at her to run, to call the medic back, to get proof. But her feet did not move. Something stronger than fear kept her there. Curiosity. A deep pull that whispered, "Stay. Watch." The soldier lay still again, his face pale, his body broken. The blanket covered most of him, hiding the truth. Maybe it had been her imagination. Maybe stress was making her see things. She took a slow step forward. Her shoes splashed softly in the water she had spilled earlier. The sound echoed in the quiet room far louder than it should have been. She swallowed hard. Her hand reached for the cloth in the bowl, though the water was almost gone. With shaking fingers, she wrung it out and touched his arm again. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his fingers twitched again. Clear. Real. Not her mind. The nurse's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced. She whispered, "You are alive." "I knew it." The monitor beside him flickered once more. The weak pulse began to grow stronger, slow but steady. Beep, beep, beep. The sound filled the room like a heartbeat of hope and terror. Her first thought was to call the medic, but she stopped. She remembered his words. Humans do not survive wounds like these. He is already gone. If she told him, he would dismiss it, maybe even try to shut down the machines. No, she had to see for herself. She had to be sure. She leaned closer.
"Can you hear me?"
For a long moment the soldier did not respond. Then, without warning, his hand shot out from beneath the blanket. The nurse gasped, nearly dropping the cloth again. His fingers wrapped around her wrist like steel. His grip was strong, far stronger than she expected from someone on the edge of death. She tried to pull away, but his hand held firm. Her breath quickened. She looked down at him. His eyelids trembled, then slowly, painfully, they opened. Two eyes stared back at her. Cold, sharp, filled with something both terrifying and human. A spark of life. A will that refused to die. The nurse froze, unable to look away. His lips parted. His voice was broken, rough like stone scraping against stone, but the words were clear enough. "Where am I?" The nurse's heart pounded in her chest. She swallowed hard and whispered, "You're safe. On a ship, don't move. You are too weak." His eyes flicked around the room, confusion flashing across them. Then they locked on hers again. "Enemy!" She shook her head quickly. "No enemy here, rest." But the soldier's grip tightened, his knuckles pale against her skin. His voice cracked but grew stronger. "They will come." Alarms blared suddenly, as if the ship itself had been waiting for his words. Red lights flashed across the walls. A distant boom echoed through the hull. The nurse's head snapped toward the door, fear rising. The soldier's eyes burned brighter now, life flooding back into him. He forced his body to move beneath the blanket, muscles straining against wounds and weakness. The door hissed open, and the alien medic rushed in. His eyes widened at the sight, the soldier awake, gripping the nurse's arm. "This is impossible," the medic shouted. "He should be dead." The nurse pulled her hand free at last, stumbling backward. Her voice shook. "He is alive." "I told you, he's alive." The medic stepped forward cautiously, scanning the monitor, then the soldier himself. The heartbeat was stronger now, steady and powerful. The alien's hands trembled. No species survives such wounds except humans. The soldier turned his head slowly, his gaze locking on the medic. For the first time, a shadow of a smile touched his lips. "Not done yet." The nurse stared at him, awe mixing with fear. He should not be alive. And yet here he was, rising slowly from the edge of death, his voice carrying the weight of something unbreakable. The ship shook again, harder this time. The medic looked at the ceiling, panic in his voice. "The enemy. They found us." The soldier's eyes hardened. His hand released the nurse at last, his arm falling back to the bed. He was too weak to rise, yet there was no fear in his gaze. "They always come," he whispered. The nurse's heart raced faster. She had only meant to clean him, only meant to do her duty, but now she stood before something greater, something that could change everything. The figure beneath the blanket was no longer just a broken soldier. He was alive, and his awakening had just begun. The alarm still echoed through the ship, red lights flashing across the medical bay. The nurse stood frozen, her back pressed against the wall, her chest heaving. She could not take her eyes off the man in the bed. He should not be alive. He should not be moving. Yet there he was, gripping life with a strength that defied reason. The alien medic stepped closer, his voice sharp and uneasy. "Restrain him. He is dangerous." The nurse shook her head quickly. "No, he just woke. He is weak. He cannot hurt anyone." But her words faltered as the soldier's hand twitched again, fingers curling into a fist. Slowly, painfully, he pushed against the mattress, trying to rise. His muscles shook, every movement dragging fire through his wounded body. The nurse's breath caught. "Please don't move. You'll tear your wounds open." The soldier's eyes opened wider, clearer now. There was confusion in them, but also something else, something hard and unyielding. He turned his head toward her, his voice raw and broken. "Where are my men?" The nurse's lips parted, but no words came. She could not tell him. She could not speak of the battlefield below, the ruins, the silence where once there had been life. His gaze sharpened. "Answer me." Her heart sank. She whispered, "You are the only one we found." Silence followed. Heavy, unbearable silence. The soldier closed his eyes for a moment. His chest rose, then fell slowly, as if he carried the weight of 1,000 ghosts. When he opened them again, the softness was gone. "Only steel remained. They will come," he said again, his voice stronger now. "They always come." The medic stepped back, unease spreading across his alien features. "This is madness. No body can fight after such wounds. He should be dead, yet he speaks of enemies." Nurse, a step away. "This human is dangerous," but the nurse did not move. She felt her fear, yes, but she also felt something else rising inside her. A strange pull, as if this man's presence alone demanded loyalty. The soldier lifted his arm again, slow but steady. His hand reached out, not weakly, not trembling like a dying man, but firm and sure. He grabbed the nurse's wrist once more. This time she did not fight him. She stared at his hand, gripping her skin, and then back into his eyes. He whispered, "Do not fear me." Her lips trembled. "Then what should I fear?" He answered with only one word. "Them." Another boom shook the ship. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The medic cursed, rushing to the wall panel. "Enemy boarding craft detected." "They are here!" The nurse's blood ran cold. The soldier's prediction had come true. The medic spun around. "We cannot protect this sector. We must evacuate the bay." He reached for the controls by the bed. "We should put him back under stasis. He will not survive the coming fight." The soldier's hand shot out faster than either of them expected. He caught the medic's wrist in a crushing grip. Despite his wounds, despite his weakness, his strength was terrifying. His eyes blazed. "Do not touch me." The medic's face paled. He tried to pull away, but the human's grip was iron. For a moment, the medic's arrogance vanished, replaced by pure fear. The nurse stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Please, stop. Both of you." The soldier released the medic suddenly, letting him stumble back. His chest heaved, his wounds bleeding again, but his will was unbroken. He leaned forward, eyes burning. "Listen," he said. "I fought them. I know how they move, how they strike. They will come here for one reason, me. If you want to survive, you must trust me." The medic shook his head violently. "You can barely stand. You are delusional. We must flee." The nurse, however, could not look away from the soldier. His voice, his eyes, his very presence carried something more than pain. It carried certainty. She whispered, "What are you?" The soldier turned to her slowly. His voice dropped, heavy with memory. "I am human, and humans do not die so easily." The word sent a chill through her body. The medic muttered in disbelief, but the nurse felt her fear shift. It did not vanish, but it changed shape. No longer fear of the man in the bed, fear of what was coming outside. The alarms grew louder. The ship shook harder. Footsteps thundered in the hall beyond the door. The soldier pushed against the mattress again, his arms trembling as he tried to rise. Sweat ran down his face, blood seeped from his wounds, but his determination was unbroken. The nurse reached out quickly, trying to hold him down. "Please, you'll kill yourself." He looked at her with fierce eyes. "Better I die standing than lying still. Now help me." She hesitated, torn between duty and instinct. Finally, she slipped her arm under his, supporting him as he sat up for the first time. His body was heavy with pain, but his presence filled the room like fire. The medic backed away, shaking his head. "This is suicide." The soldier ignored him. His eyes stayed fixed on the door, where the sound of metal being cut open now screamed through the hall. He whispered one last warning, his voice like thunder in the quiet room. "They are here." The nurse's heart pounded. She realized in that moment, whatever was about to happen, nothing in the galaxy could stop it, and the fear she felt was no longer for him. It was for everyone else. The hiss of burning metal echoed outside the medical bay. The enemy was cutting through the door. Sparks rained across the floor, each flash a countdown to the moment of entry. Inside, the nurse still supported the soldier as he sat upright on the bed. His body trembled, his wounds raw, but his eyes burned with a fire she could not understand. The alien medic stood near the far wall, panic in his movements as he prepared the emergency panel. "We must leave. If we stay, we die." His voice cracked with fear, but the soldier shook his head. His voice, though broken and low, was steady. "Running won't save you."
"They will chase you."
"They always chase until nothing is left." The nurse turned to him, her hands gripping his arm tightly. "Then what do we do? You can't fight in this state." The soldier closed his eyes for a moment as if listening to echoes from a time long past. His lips moved slowly. "I remember the fire, the screams. My brothers, my sisters. We stood together, outnumbered, surrounded, but we did not run. Humans do not run." The nurse's breath caught. His words were not just memories, they were promises. The medic scoffed, his fear twisting into anger. "You speak like a warrior, but look at you. You are broken."
"You are dying!"
The soldier opened his eyes again, fixing the medic with a stare so sharp it silenced him. "Broken?" His voice hardened. "Yes, dying? Maybe, but finished? Never." His words filled the room with weight. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fall quiet for a moment. The nurse felt something stir inside her. Fear still lived in her chest, but it mixed now with awe. She whispered, "Why? Why do you keep fighting?" The soldier turned to her. His gaze softened, though his fire did not fade. "Because we must. Humanity has always been small, weak compared to the galaxy, fragile bodies, short lives. But that is why we fight harder. We fight because no one else will. We fight because surrender means extinction." He looked down at his scarred hands, blood still dripping from reopened wounds. His voice grew distant, heavy with memory. "I remember one night, a battlefield lit with fire. The enemy thought we would fall. They had numbers. They had weapons. But they did not understand us. We held the line until dawn. Men and women who should have been dead kept standing. Every step forward cost us blood, but we kept moving. When the sun rose, we were still there. That is what it means to be human." The nurse felt her throat tighten. She had heard stories of human resilience, whispered in stations and camps, but hearing it now from a soldier who should not even be alive made her believe every word. The medic shook his head, fear still etched on his face. "You are fools, always chasing death." The soldier's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Maybe, but if death comes, it will find us standing." Another explosion rattled the walls. The door shook violently as enemy cutters carved deeper into the metal. The nurse clutched his arm tighter. "You cannot face them alone. You'll die before you can even stand." The soldier's eyes locked on hers. "Then don't let me stand alone." Her breath caught. The request was simple, but it carried a weight she had never felt before. He was not asking for pity. He was not asking for safety. He was asking for courage. The medic stepped forward, shaking his head. "This is madness. He cannot protect you. If you follow him, you die too." But the nurse's heart had already decided. She turned to the soldier, her voice trembling but strong. "Tell me what to do." For the first time, his eyes softened fully. Gratitude flickered across his face, though his body was still locked in pain. "Help me stand," he said. Together they tried. The nurse wrapped her arm under his, straining as she pulled him up. The soldier groaned, his teeth clenched, but his body obeyed. Slowly, inch by inch, he rose from the bed. Blood stained the sheets, sweat poured down his face, but he stood. The medic backed away, disbelief in his eyes. "Impossible." The soldier leaned against the nurse, his chest heaving, but his back was straight. He looked toward the shaking door, where sparks rained down in waves. "They think we are finished," he whispered. "They always think that. But they never understand." The nurse swallowed hard. "Understand what?" His voice was steady, calm, and unbreakable. "That humans never surrender." The words filled the room like thunder. The nurse felt her fear twist into something else entirely. Not hope, not yet, but resolve. The door screeched, metal breaking apart as glowing cracks spread across its surface. The enemy was seconds away from breaking in. The soldier adjusted his stance, planting his feet firmly despite the blood soaking through his bandages. He looked like a man who had already walked through hell and was ready to do it again. The medic stared in horror. "You will kill us all." But the nurse shook her head. For the first time since this began, her voice carried strength. "No, he will save us." The soldier glanced at her, a faint smile flickering across his broken face, and then the door burst open. The door finally gave way. A shower of sparks fell across the floor as the metal collapsed inward. Smoke poured into the room, carrying the smell of burning steel. Shadows moved within the haze, dark figures with heavy boots and glowing weapons. The nurse's heart stopped for a moment. The enemy had arrived. The alien medic stumbled backward, his voice breaking. "We are finished. They are too many." But the soldier stood tall, leaning against the nurse for balance, his body trembling with pain yet unbending in spirit. His face was pale, his wounds bleeding, but his eyes, those human eyes, burned like fire. The first enemy soldier stepped through the smoke. His armor gleamed black, his mask reflecting the flashing red lights of the alarm. He raised his weapon, aiming at the three inside the bay. The nurse held her breath. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body would not move. She felt the soldier shift beside her. His grip tightened on her arm, steadying himself. The enemy soldier spoke in a cold, mechanical voice. "Target confirmed. Eliminate the human," the medic cried out. "He cannot even stand. Leave him. He is no threat." The enemy ignored him. Their weapons glowed brighter. The soldier's lips curled into a grim smile. His voice was hoarse but strong. "They fear me. Even now, half dead, they fear what I am." The nurse whispered, "You can't fight them. Not like this." He glanced at her, his expression calm but sharp. "Then help me fight." Before she could answer, the enemy surged forward. 3 more entered the bay, their weapons raised. The soldier let go of the nurse and stumbled forward, his body swaying like a man about to fall. But then, with a roar that shook the room, he lunged. His bare hand slammed against the first enemy's weapon, knocking it aside. The shot fired into the wall, scorching steel. The medic gasped. The nurse's eyes widened. How could a body so broken move with such force? The soldier grabbed the enemy by the chest plate and pulled, twisting with sheer willpower. The armored figure crashed into the floor, weapon clattering away. Blood dripped from the soldier's wounds, but he did not stop. Another enemy aimed at him. The nurse's fear broke. Without thinking, she grabbed the fallen weapon. It was heavy, too heavy, but her hands tightened around it. She aimed and fired. The blast hit the second enemy in the shoulder, knocking him back. Her arms shook from the recoil, but her shot had landed. She gasped, staring at her hands. She had never fired before. The soldier glanced at her briefly, a flicker of approval in his eyes. Good. The enemies regrouped. More shadows filled the doorway. There were too many, the medic screamed. "We cannot win." "They will crush us." The soldier staggered, his breathing ragged, but he spread his arms wide, standing between the nurse and the enemy. His voice thundered through the chaos. "Then let them come. I will not fall lying down." The enemy commander stepped forward now, taller than the rest, his voice cold and cruel. "You should have died on that battlefield, human. Your kind does not belong here." The soldier's gaze hardened. His answer was simple, but it carried the weight of 1,000 battles. "We always belong. Wherever there is a fight, humanity stands." The commander raised his weapon. The nurse felt her stomach twist. She wanted to pull the soldier back, to hide him, to protect him, but she knew he would never allow it. The first blast fired. The soldier ducked, the beam scorching past his head. He staggered but did not fall. With a roar, he slammed his fist into the commander's chest plate. The impact echoed like thunder, cracking armor. The commander stumbled back, shocked. The nurse fired again, hitting another enemy in the leg. The medic at last grabbed a tool from the wall and struck blindly at one of the soldiers, more out of fear than courage. The room became chaos, smoke, shouts, flashes of fire. But in the center of it all, the human soldier stood like a storm, wounded yet unstoppable. The nurse watched him with awe. Every time he was struck, he rose again. Every movement was a battle against death itself, but he refused to surrender. She realized then what made humans different. Not their strength, not their weapons, but their spirit, the unbreakable will to fight when all hope was gone. The commander shouted, "Hold him down." 4 soldiers rushed him at once. The soldier stumbled, blood pouring from his side. For a moment it seemed he would collapse, but then his voice rose, louder than the alarms, louder than the chaos. "You will never break me." With a final surge, he threw 2 of them off, his eyes blazing like fire. The nurse's fear turned into something else. Resolve. She aimed the weapon again, steadying her hands this time. "If he won't fall, neither will I," she fired. Another soldier fell. The medic, though shaking, struck again with his tool. Shouting wordlessly, together, for the first time, they stood not as victims, but as fighters. The commander staggered back. His armor cracked, his soldiers falling around him. His voice shook with rage. "This is impossible. You are already dead." The soldier, bleeding and gasping, lifted his head high. His words cut through the smoke like a blade. "Not dead, not finished, human." The nurse felt her chest tighten with awe. Even broken, even dying, he stood like a giant. The enemy had returned. But so had humanity. The med bay was filled with smoke and fire. Sparks flew from the ruined door, and the smell of burnt metal stung the air. The floor was stained with blood, human and alien alike. The alarms howled, their red lights flashing like a heartbeat of doom. The soldier stood in the center of the chaos. His body shook, his wounds bleeding heavily, but his back was straight. His eyes burned with a fire that refused to go out. He looked like a man carved from pain and steel. The nurse stood at his side, clutching the enemy weapon with trembling hands. The alien medic cowered behind the broken machines, eyes wide with disbelief. The enemy commander stepped forward, armor cracked, weapon raised. Around him, more soldiers pushed through the smoke, filling the medbay. Their heavy boots echoed like thunder, their glowing rifles aimed at the lone human. The commander's voice was cold and sharp. "You cannot win. You are broken. You should have died with the rest of your kind." The soldier spat blood on the floor. His voice was hoarse, but it carried power. "Maybe I should have. But I didn't. And as long as I breathe, I stand." The nurse's heart pounded. She wanted to pull him back, to beg him to sit, to save his strength. But one look at his face told her the truth. He would rather die fighting than live in chains. The commander gave the order. "End him." The enemies surged forward. Blaster fire cut through the smoke, burning holes into the walls. The nurse screamed and ducked, firing back wildly. The medic covered his head, shrieking in fear. But the soldier did not flinch. He moved forward, his steps heavy but unstoppable. He grabbed the first enemy by the throat, lifting him despite his own shaking body, and slammed him against the wall. Armor cracked, sparks flew. The enemy fell limp to the floor. A second soldier struck him with the butt of a rifle. Blood burst from the soldier's mouth, but instead of falling, he grabbed the weapon, tore it from the alien's hands, and used it as a club. The crack of impact rang through the bay as the alien collapsed. The nurse fired again, this time steady. Her shot struck true, dropping another enemy. She gasped for breath, but her eyes stayed locked on the soldier. He was bleeding everywhere, his legs trembling, but he kept moving. Every strike, every roar, every breath was a defiance of death itself. The commander shouted, rage in his voice. "Hold him down!" 4 soldiers rushed him at once. They slammed into him, driving him back toward the wall. The soldier grunted, his knees nearly buckling. For a heartbeat, it seemed he would fall. But then his roar shook the walls. With a surge of raw strength, he threw them off, his body trembling with effort, his wounds tearing open wider. Blood poured down his chest, but his eyes were fire. The nurse whispered in awe, "How can he still stand?" The medic shook his head, his voice trembling. "This is why humans are feared. They do not stop. Even when broken, they rise." The commander snarled, stepping forward himself. He swung his glowing blade at the soldier. The human barely blocked it with the stolen rifle, sparks flying as metal clashed against energy. The force drove him back, but he held on, his arm shaking violently. The nurse's breath caught. Every second looked like his last, yet he refused to fall. The soldier pushed back with a roar, shoving the commander away. His body swayed, his legs threatening to give, but he planted his feet firmly on the ground. "Not yet," he growled. The commander raised his weapon again, fury blazing. "You are nothing." The soldier's voice rose, louder than the alarms, louder than the chaos. "I am human, and I am not done." The nurse felt her own fear burn away, replaced by something she never expected. Pride. She lifted her weapon again, firing beside him, covering his flank. The medic, trembling, grabbed another tool and struck at an enemy soldier. For a moment, they stood together, One broken human, one frightened nurse. One reluctant alien, holding the line against impossible odds. The commander hesitated, just for a second, as if he too felt the weight of what stood before him. A dying man who refused to die. A spirit that could not be crushed. The nurse whispered, half to herself, half to the universe. "This is what it means to be human." The soldier took a deep breath, blood dripping from his lips, and raised his stolen weapon. His eyes locked on the enemy commander, steady and fierce. "Then come," he said. "Let's finish this." The enemy soldiers roared and charged. The medbay became a storm of fire and smoke. And in the heart of it, the soldier stood like a wall, refusing to break. It was not just a fight anymore. It was a stand. His stand. Humanity's stand. The medbay was fire and thunder. Smoke curled along the ceiling, sparks rained across the floor, and the alarms screamed like dying voices. The enemy soldiers pressed forward, their black armor glowing in the flashing red light. But still, he stood. The human soldier was drenched in blood, his breath ragged, his body broken. Yet his back remained straight, his eyes fierce. Each strike he delivered was slower now, heavier, but each one carried the weight of something greater than flesh. The nurse fired from behind him, her hands steady now. She no longer trembled. She no longer thought of fear. She thought only of keeping him alive. The alien medic, once frozen in terror, swung tools and threw whatever he could grab. He shouted curses at the invaders, more desperate than brave, but still he fought. The commander charged, blade raised high. "End this, human." The soldier met him head-on. Their weapons clashed, sparks exploding between them. The commander pushed with all his strength, and the soldier staggered. His legs trembled, his knees nearly giving way. The nurse cried out, "No!" But then, through blood and pain, the soldier's voice rose. "Not yet." With a roar, he shoved the commander back. His arms shook violently, his body swayed, but his eyes burned brighter than fire. The commander snarled, "Why do you fight? You are already dead." The soldier's lips curled into a faint smile, though blood dripped from them. "Because I am human." "And humans are never finished," the words struck the room like thunder. Even the enemy soldiers hesitated, if only for a heartbeat. The commander roared, furious. "No more!" He raised his blade for the final strike. The nurse screamed. The soldier closed his eyes for a moment, and then he changed. His chest heaved, and his voice grew steady, calm. "Time to show you why we endure." He reached to his side, his hand slipping beneath the blood-soaked blanket that had once covered him. For a moment it seemed he was falling, but then his fingers closed around something cold and solid. He pulled free a small device, scorched and half-broken, hidden against his body all this time. The nurse gasped. The medic's eyes widened, the commander froze. "What is that?" The soldier looked at him with steady fire, hope and fear. The device glowed faintly, pulsing with light. "You thought I was finished. But I am the carrier, the last, the one who holds what you fear most." The commander stepped back, sudden unease in his movements. "Impossible. That weapon was destroyed." The soldier's faint smile deepened. "Not destroyed, carried by me." The nurse's heart raced. She did not understand what it was, but she felt the truth in his voice. This was not just a soldier. He was something more, a protector, a messenger, a living blade of humanity's spirit. The commander roared and lunged. "Lies!" The soldier lifted the device high. "No. Revelation." The glow burst, filling the medbay with blinding light. The enemies staggered, their weapons dropping, their voices screaming. The nurse shielded her eyes, her breath caught in her throat. When the light faded, the soldier still stood. His body trembled, his knees bent, but his hand held the device like a torch in the dark. The commander lay on the ground, his armor cracked open, his weapon shattered. The other enemy soldiers crawled back, fear on their faces. For the first time, they looked less like hunters, and more like prey. The soldier's voice thundered. "Tell your masters, humanity is not finished. Humanity stands." The surviving enemies scrambled back through the smoke, dragging their wounded, retreating into the shadows. The commander, broken and beaten, glared with hatred, but even he fled. Silence fell at last. The alarms still wailed, the smoke still curled, but the enemy was gone. The nurse lowered her weapon slowly. Her chest heaved, her hands shook, but her eyes never left him. You saved us." The soldier swayed, blood dripping onto the floor. His body was failing, but his eyes stayed steady. "Not just you, all of us. Humanity must endure. Always. The medic stepped forward, still trembling. You should be dead. No creature should survive this. Yet you fight. Even broken, why? The soldier looked at him with tired eyes, yet they still carried fire. Because that is who we are. We fight when hope is gone. We rise when others fall. That is the human spirit. His legs buckled. The nurse rushed to catch him, her arms wrapping around his heavy frame. She looked up into his face, tears in her eyes. Rest now. You've done enough. But he shook his head weakly. Not enough. Never enough. There will always be another fight. The nurse's tears fell, but she nodded. She finally understood. He was not just a man. He was a symbol of humanity's will, of their refusal to surrender. The soldier closed his eyes at last, whispering one final truth before the darkness claimed him. Remember this. Humanity always rises again. His head slumped against her shoulder, his body heavy and broken, but the words hung in the air, burning brighter than any flame. The nurse held him tight, her voice shaking but strong. Yes, humanity rises. Outside the ship, the enemy fled into the stars. And across the galaxy, though they did not know it yet, a single truth had been reborn. Humans are never ordinary.